It's one thing for large companies to set business objectives to align the team and track progress towards key goals, but for solo businesses and freelancers, it can feel a bit tedious to keep track of our own efforts. The truth is, setting simple objectives, clear targets for ourselves can be one of the best ways to hold ourselves accountable, to get a reality check on any progress that we're making or perhaps not making, and also to help us prioritize on what the most important actions, projects, and activities are in our business. So in this video, we'll walk through a quick system which you can copy and start using, which will help you test and check the objectives you've set for yourself. It will help you add them to a Notion database, link those objectives to key metrics, data sources, and any projects in your database, and then archive those objectives once they're either reached or turned idle. If you're using the Objectives, Actions, and Key Projects template, you can navigate from the main dashboard into our Objectives page. And at the top, you'll see there are some pre-filled objectives, just as examples to fill out the database for us. But as a first step, we're going to scroll down to this Causal Model, which is just a very general objectives checker. And what we have here are 4 inputs, which you can adjust for yourself. Simply, there's going to be a current value for whatever objective metric you want to be using. There'll be a target value, there'll be a timeline in months, and there'll be a growth rate which we input, which is kind of our best guess for how quickly or what's a realistic growth rate month over month. So what kinds of values should we be inputting here? Well, the reason that we've built a general checker is because this can change from business to business, and it can also change within businesses. So for example, if I wanted to set an objective for myself which was about website visitors, this value might be something much higher. So it might start at 1,000, the target might be 10,000 per month. The timeline for this might be a bit longer. It might be something like 9 to 12 months. And the growth rate needed will end up being much larger since there's quite a big discrepancy here. If I scroll down to the bottom of this model, I will find the growth rate needed to reach my target, which in this case is 10,000 views per month, within the timeline that I've set for myself, which is within the next 9 to 12 months. Now there's more information about this model, about the inputs, about the charts and outputs that are listed, but we can try another 1 or 2 examples just to kind of get the feel for this and what's going on. So another objective which we might want to track could be revenue. So let's say that we are starting with our current revenue is 4,000 per month, and our target, we'd like to, let's say we want to double our revenue. That's not going to work. 8,000 within something ambitious like the next 6 months. In this top left chart, we will see the amount of added revenue we need to generate each month. In the second chart, we'll see the monthly value. So in this case, it's revenue. So as an example, by April 2022, the monthly value at this 10% growth rate would be 7.1 thousand. In this third chart, we will see the growth, the added amount of revenue we need to be finding and bringing in versus the monthly total revenue. And in this fourth chart, we have a scrollable statistic, and this value at the end of the timeline will show us what the monthly revenue, in this case, will be after 6 months. And if we change this to 9 months, it will show us what the value will be after 9 months. Effectively, this is just giving us a kind of 9-step look into the future based on whatever our timeline happens to be. Now, right now, the growth rate is what we have input for ourselves. But this bottom value is perhaps the most interesting piece for you, because this is going to tell us what growth rate is needed to reach our target. In this case, we want it to double and reach 8,000 in monthly revenue within 6 months. And this has calculated the growth rate that would be needed for this. So if we were to input 16.7% as the growth rate, we should find that in 6 months, the monthly revenue will be 8,000. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're already at 6. It's at 8.7, so it's exceeded that value, but it has reached it within our 6-month timeline. If we change this target to 6,000 within 6 months, that will update the values, and it will update the growth rate needed, so we can change this to 8.3%. And again, within 6 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we should reach our monthly target, which happens to be 6,000. So the best way to get a feeling for how these inputs relate to the graphs, how the graphs relate to each other, and what a reasonable growth rate might be compared to the one that's needed, is to simply start playing around with this for yourself. Now, this is in the thousands for something like revenue, but if we had something perhaps like leads that we wanted to generate, or contacts, let's say we had 25 in our database and we wanted to reach 100 within the next 3 months or so, we could find out what the growth rate needed monthly. So it's going to be, we need to basically double the amount of contacts that we have each month. We can input that value into this graph, and it's going to give an absurd amount at the end of this graph. But if you do scroll down here to where we are currently, 25 goes to 50, goes to 100, within 3 months, we'll reach our target. So again, feel free to play around with this model. This is really just a tool to help us kind of give a reality check for the targets that we're setting for ourselves and the timelines that are perhaps most reasonable to actually reach those targets. So quick recap, give the current value for whatever objective metric you happen to be looking for, give the target value, the timeline that you have available, and this will output a growth rate that's needed. Here, feel free to add whatever growth rate you feel you can actually accomplish. So for this example, we're going to use a case where we are trying to increase our website visitors from current monthly visit rate of 500 to 2,500 per month. Let's give ourselves 6 months for it, and we find the growth rate needed is 66% month over month. And this will give us our targets for these first few months, is really what we're interested in. And so what I can do now is input this into the Notion database. So we can track this as a marketing objective, and let's just call it 2,500 monthly website visitors. And we're going to now, from this view, we can directly enter the objective object, and we're going to fill out a few more details about it. So once we've opened our objective, we can set a check-in date. As we mentioned in the step before, we have set ourselves a 6-month timeline, so we can add this 6 months from now. We've set the target as 2,500 monthly website visitors. Our current value is 500. You'll notice that the progress bar updates automatically. So as of right now, we just have 2 plain integer values, and what we need to do is link this to a metric. Now, the database is already filled with some common metrics for solo businesses and freelancers, but if you need to add a new one, you can easily do so either directly from this view or by going to the metrics database, which we'll cover in more detail in a future video. But for now, this is already listed as a metric, so I'll add monthly website visitors as the related metric. Again, we'll cover related actions and projects in a future video. I've already set up a project which I'm going to call SEO Foundations, which is effectively going to help me reach this objective. And the type of objective is going to be an outcome. So there are 2 main types of objectives which we will be able to input. Outcome objectives are things that happen for our business, such as the number of people who happen to come to our website after we take some actions. And there are action objectives, which are more about the things that we control, things like how many articles we post and publish, how many videos we create and publish, the things that we are inputting into our business. When creating an objective, you can also start from this pre-made objectives template, which will just load some basic structure to help you kind of formulate and think about the purpose statement for this objective, give a little bit more detail about it, how it's going, any observations or key learnings. So now that we've created our objective, we'll see it appear in this top view. We'll also see it on our home dashboard if you're using the full system. But let's say now we fast forward 6 months ahead and we have reached our target, maybe we exceeded it. The best way to archive this objective so that it no longer takes up any space in the board view is to simply hit the archive button. That will automatically remove it from this view. And if you ever want to find or view your archived objectives, there's a pre-built table where you can go in and view those already completed or now idle objectives. So to recap, while setting objectives may not be the most exciting part of your freelance or solo business, it's an important step for staying on track, for holding yourself accountable, and for serving as a bit of a reality check for the progress that you're making. We covered a quick system which you can start using right away, which helps you forecast and test your objectives at different growth rates using a causal model in the Notion template. We covered how to add those objectives to your Notion database. Then we discussed linking them to various projects and metrics. And finally, we covered how to archive those objectives which are no longer active.